1 in 5 suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays.
We are Marla and Dave. I'm Marla.
And I'm Dave.
Sometimes Dave tries to be me. I know he does. He thinks he knows everything about Marla, so I have to identify myself separately sometimes. Hey, sweetie, you're Dave. Go ahead.
Thank you for that setup there, Marla. And we'll let that stay right there. I just want to remind you guys to text the word GIVE, G-I-V-E, to 818-698-1021 and support our Dollar Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign. You know what? We had such an amazing conversation last week that we had to continue. And we are so glad to once again be joined by Wesley and Stephanie Knight. Just to remind you, Wesley is the pastor of the Revision Church in Atlanta, and Stephanie is a pediatric occupational therapist. They are a dynamic duo, and like most of us, they had to deal with some dysfunction growing up, but they've subsequently dealt with it head on, and we were talking about that last week. And today we're going to focus a little bit more on waking up that emerging emotional intelligence, both from a standpoint of what it is and how it can be used to help you grow and find balance in your life. And we're also going to dig into a little bit of the inner working of the Revision Church and the ministry there. When we come back, more of our incredible conversation with the Knights.
When Dave and Marla get together, it's hot.
Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley believe it doesn't take much to make life a little better for our neighbors, coworkers, friends, our family members, even our children who suffer with mental illness. When you support our A Dollar Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign, you are doing your part to erase the stigma surrounding mental illness. For just $1 today, or $1 a day for 1 week, just $7, we can look forward to a future that does not include the unfortunate and uncomfortable stares, bullying, and the subsequent isolation that our loved ones who suffer with brain differences deal with. Text the word GIVE, that's G-I-V-E, to 818-698-1021 to donate. A Dollar Today Keeps the Stigma Away. Brought to you by Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley.
All right, as promised, we are back, and we're going to dive right in. Pastor Knight, you were really, and Stephanie, you guys were describing sort of a foundational understanding of emerging emotional intelligence. And we were reminding everyone that, again, whatever trauma you may go through, first of all, you're not alone. It happens to everyone, happens to most people. And when people say that they don't know what you're talking about, they're probably not telling the truth. So because of that, and out of that, you can actually emerge stronger versus in a more weakened position. And part of that is understanding this theory that you guys reminded us of and started teaching us about, emerging emotional intelligence. And with that, I'm going to just turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Good to be back with you all again.
Yes.
Indeed.
Had such a great time. Had such a great time last week. So we were talking about this whole thing of emerging emotional intelligence, which for us was our understanding that our feelings matter, that our emotions were teaching us something, that our traumatic experiences were calling us to kind of dig deeper to find out what really happened, how is it affecting the present, and how can we kind of harness or change things for the future. And so when we were talking last week, when we were married, we went to that one fateful 30-minute session where we began to understand what this all means. And it's affected every area of our lives. And I know that you all are really big on therapy. And for us, that was the springboard, was going to therapy so that we could begin to realize that this mattered especially as Christians, right?
And that one 30-minute session led us to probably 2 or 3 different therapists before I found my last therapist, which the relationship lasts, therapeutic relationship, for 10 years.
Wow.
It was a whole,
that's notable.
No, she was 7 years and I did 3 before. So it finding the perfect fit. All of them helped in some way and played a part.
Right.
But when I got the just right one, it was a journey because I wanted to look under every rock. I wanted to understand at such a deep level that I wouldn't shortchange my children in mothering. I wouldn't shortchange myself because I had not dealt with some issues from my trauma. I wouldn't shortchange my marriage because I couldn't present myself 100%.
Wow.
The journey just, and I like what you said earlier, Dave, it can become your superpower, and it truly can. It was just so transformative, and we impacted each other. You start going to the therapist I was going to, and then he did another one. So, I mean, it really led us to a place where now we're empty nesters, and it's a sweet journey.
It's a sweet Yeah. And I think she said she went to therapy for 10 years. So did I. I had a couple different therapists, and then we actually shared a therapist and even sometimes did joint stuff. I think when people understand our origin stories, I think both of our therapists have said to us at different times, our origin stories without therapy, I don't know if we might have made it or stayed together, but we certainly wouldn't have the level of health and happiness that we have. And I think one of the things that we like to tell people is that you just don't know the life you can have. Until you unlock this emerging emotional intelligence where you are aware of and validate your emotions.
Remind us again of the reason why it's called emerging emotional intelligence versus just emotional intelligence.
Well, for us, the reason we've kind of coined it that way is because you're always learning. It's always emerging. Especially, I think I want to point this out, especially for those who've come up in a religious background. For all those
layers to it.
There's definitely layers to it. For those who've come up in a religious, particularly, we can speak from our context, a Christian background, that there's so many layers of self-denial, I think you're actually taught to ignore your feelings, right? You're taught in a way, you're taught low self-esteem as a virtue, which it's not. Right? So you're taught all of these things. And so if emotional intelligence is down here, it has to emerge through all those layers. Of theology, toxic psychology, all in the name of Jesus. And it's really hard to break through that. So emerging for us is the fact that we have emerging emotional intelligence because it's got to fight through.
It's got to come up. It's got to be born. It's got to break
all the way through the concrete. All the way through the concrete.
That's right.
Praise God, it's going to emerge.
Wow.
And
that's man, on a spiritual level, what you're bringing up for me is my own truth. I'm a sharer, and then what I would have to share is that what you're saying I can relate to. My suffering and blind subservience, and it's okay to be subservient, but my blind subservience was literally about being Christ-like. Like that's that is where if I'm as big as God created me to be, then I'm tripping. So fall back, Marla. Don't be little. Because in every glory that God gave all this to me as a human, but I'm not showing my Christ-like coat, my spirit if I do that. So to say that is huge because the emerging emotional intelligence is the way you describe it is something that I'm going to jot down and hold on to because that's huge. I relate to that.
Oh,
Yeah. And my personality as well. I grew up hearing, you're just too much.
You're a lot.
You're too much. And now I embrace it. I am too much. I have too much life going on.
Yeah.
I have an overflow of love. I'm extremely gifted. Yeah, that's just the way he made me. I connect with children who are nonverbal on a level that parents, they don't even go to people. How are they going to you? And I'm sitting like, it's my secret power. Right. Because as a child, I was abused. And instead of becoming an abuser of children, God chose to make me a healer.
Right.
And so that's the vein I operate in. And before I would dumb it down. I've been in relationships with family and stuff, just kind of bring that down. Now, if it's too bright, you can either get shades or you can leave my space. It's just either or, mean, whatever works for you. But I can't do that because it's bigger than me. God made me this way, Marla, because this is the contribution we make to the world to represent him. And if we pull back, then they don't get that view of God. They don't get that view of goodness that he put within us.
Absolutely.
So now I refuse to.
Man.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And Stephanie, I'm gonna tell you, my tag in life is Marla Talks on my social media. And people are like, you talk too much. I'm like, that's because God gave me a lot to say. Thanks.
That's right.
So you don't have to listen.
Wow.
That's all. If it doesn't resonate, you don't have to listen. But I mean, I've been talking since I was born. So there you have it. So it's just not, it's just it's who I am.
Yeah.
That is so unique that you say that because that was my journey.
Absolutely.
Right.
Matter of fact, in kindergarten,
listen to this.
I was put in a chair, I was tied, and tape was put over my mouth. This is at a Christian school that I was put there because I moved and I talked too much. And then I was too afraid to tell my parents because one in particular used to joke and say, you diarrhea at the mouth. And so they didn't see it, that parent didn't see it as a gift, but the other one did begin to see it. And so now I preach, I teach, I talk. I just make sure my husband gets a nap so he can take it all in. I was born talking too, like you, Marla.
Hilarious. Well, don't move. We're gonna be right back with more with tonight's Stephanie. Don't stop talking. We need your voice. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Also called affective disorders, mood disorders may involve feeling sad all the time, losing interest in important parts of life, fluctuating between extreme happiness and extreme sadness.
Other symptoms may be irritability, changes in appetite or weight, changes in sleep patterns, or difficulty concentrating.
The most common mood disorders are depression, bipolar disorder, seasonal affective disorder, and self-harm. An estimated 21.4% of U.S. adults experience any mood disorder at some time in their lives.
And on Mental Health Mondays, we always encourage, if you or anyone you know are experiencing any of these symptoms, distorted moods or emotional states, please seek professional help. Life can get better.
Brought to you by Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically live my personality on my scene.
But when Marla and Dave get together, it's like a match dancing with a firecracker.
So Stephanie and Wesley, I have to tell you this right quick. David and I have headphones that are like matching. Mm-hmm. And mine say Marla Talks and his has on the top, Dave Listens.
Dave does his best. I'll put it to you that way. To keep up.
So we want to continue this conversation about emerging emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. So I'm turning it back over to the two of you to continue to enlighten us.
But
Well, I think,
specifically
yeah.
emerging emotional intelligence, specifically as not just why we need it, but then how we can use it in our everyday lives, and how it's important to us as we move forward, even once we discover and uncover that trauma and then learn how to deal with it. How do we use that moving forward, and possibly even teach it to our children?
Yeah. I'm so glad you asked that, because our parenting, I think, definitely changed and was empowered and improved because of as parents, emerging emotional intelligence. One example of that is that, as you're learning to discipline your children, teach them right from wrong, kind of correct them, we were taught, a lot of Black people came up. Whoopings. You get whoopings, you get beatings, spankings, and all that. And so we were kind of, when you don't think about things, you just do what was done to you. So with our first child, we give her, she didn't get a lot of spanking. I mean, maybe a little pat here, a little pat there, a little pat on the hand. But when our son came along, I remember he did something, I can't remember what age he was, and we did a little spanking. Then something just came to me where I watched his behavior. I watched his emotions change and surface. And I told my wife, I said, we can't do that to him anymore. We can't do that. I said, I know it was done to us, but it's not going to work for him, because we saw something in his spirit.
He did.
It just didn't work for him.
Yeah.
And so
it wasn't like a big deal thing. I mean, it was like a little pat in the hand, but his reaction was so visceral. I mean, it was just, you were like, no. Yeah, it's not happening.
And so I think that that's one example of how it helped us with parenting. But then later on, as the kids got older, one of the things that we realized is that, and this happens all the times, is that if parents aren't emotionally intelligent and aware of what's going on and getting their help, you can pass on traumatic practices and trauma to your kids.
Yeah.
Generational.
Because they don't know your story. And so part of what we did was we talked to our therapist to understand when's the appropriate time and what level of disclosure. But we started doing that at different levels as they got older, 13, 14, 16, 17. We started sharing more of our story. And what we found is, and we're so grateful for this, is that they are way more emotionally intelligent than we were at their age.
Wow.
Because we shared our story with them.
Appropriately.
In an appropriate way. We didn't share our trauma. We shared our
your story
with them. Yeah. And it empowered them to be emotionally intelligent.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is
so as an African American Christian Seventh-day Adventist couple, again, I could say I think you guys were mold breakers, because that's not even the sharing of your story is not no. We're not going to talk about that, because it's going to shade what I'm projecting as I am a Christian.
Now, also, Pastor Knight, I want to almost turn the conversation a little bit, but I don't want it to feel abrupt. So you can help me with this. You also teach this from the pulpit, which is a major difference than what we hear from most pulpits in the African American church, especially from a Christian, especially from a Seventh-day Adventist perspective. So how is that received, first of all? And then how do you maintain, because, as time goes on, people's interest in the church seems to be waning. But when I watch you speak, I can't not watch. It's not just informative, but it feels good, if that makes any sense. So explain how you turn that into a ministry.
Yeah. And I think that's what God did, is that he did change that trauma into really kind of a testimony and a way to reach out to people. And I think our international reach, I mean, we've got people who literally joined our church that live around the world, Tokyo and Copenhagen and different places. And I think all of them have said is that the reason we want to be part of this faith community, this local church, is because there is an acknowledgement of my full humanity.
Yeah.
That's what we hear. And so that's kind of the approach that I take. I think that growing up, I learned a left-brained religion, so only about logic, truth. Truth was a big word in our church. You know that, right? What's right and wrong. But a whole-brained religion is really what I teach and preach. That the human experience is not just spiritual. It's also social, and it's psychological, and it's physical. And so if we ignore that part, then we don't really have a holistic gospel that we're preaching. And I think that's why people are connecting. They're connecting because we're talking about how to spot a narcissism and how to treat them, and even how to show grace to a narcissist. It's different than how you treat other people, you know. And I think a lot of Christians are afraid of that because we really don't understand. We could do a whole part 3. We really don't understand what grace means when it comes to mental health. But yeah, that's how we do it at church. Yeah.
Well, you actually you were instrumental in helping me in my marriage, because I literally was like, "Hey, I'm tired of telling this. Here, watch Pastor Knight. Look at the series." And Dave called up and he was like, "Okay, to be totally honest, I totally get," because that's the whole thing. So I'm just telling you that your impact, I know it to be spiritual because it has broken through where, you know, it's not like I don't take in, a myriad of information, but I just, it's penetrated. It's real. And to be honest, we're transparent. We have 2 different adult children. We speak publicly about 2 different mental health issues, but it has been instrumental. We live it. So when I'm experiencing, and I can't generally relate to anybody. So your spiritual approach is something as well that has been profound in my family, between me and Dave and our marriage as parents.
Absolutely. And we thank you for that. So one of the things, a question that came to my mind as you were talking, Stephanie, was it also part of your profession that was able to allow you guys as a family to be more perceptive to that a need that your child was having? When, as we know, because we have the same thing, we have 3 kids, some of them could seem like they can take the slight spankings, as you were saying, and some of them really just could not. And so it was like, man, this is very strange. But that takes an extra level of perception. Stephanie, was your profession also helpful in that area as well?
You guys seem to found a way to figure out that one-size parenting doesn't fit all.
And you found out early enough in your children's lives that it was able to make an impact in their development.
Oh yes. We, as we learned and we grew, we wanted to impart that. But just that discernment, that awareness, there are very few times within our marriage, my husband, probably 3 times in almost 23 years, where he said something definitively. And I, the talker, would just listen and follow. I mean, usually, I don't mind following, but I do like a little clarification, a little more information. About 3 times. And then when he said that about our son, I totally got it. I totally got it, and I do. And just parenting them, learning, when they come home and they tell you something and how they feel. I had to ask the therapist, well, what do you say? And so she was like, say, how did that make you feel when they tell their story? So showing me some intentionality and skills, and it's helped to take the sting of life away from them, being able to know what questions to ask and not just try to solve every problem.
Yeah.
And validation is foundational. So like Marla's about to say, go ahead, Marla.
Well, I'm going to say we're validating all your points, but you need to stay right there. We'll be back after the break.
All right.
All right, Marla, I know it's kind of late there where you are, but you hear the
There has to be There has to be
some
kind of special dance you're learning in Taiwan locked in your room. There's got to be something that you're working on.
I'm not sure that it can be viewed here with this rating of PG on this show. So anyway, last week we asked the question, what percentage of teens between the ages of 13 and 18 years old experience anxiety disorder? Your options were 9.7%, 14.2%, and 25.1%. And ding, 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 you guys were absolutely correct. And we should have known. Marla, what's the question for next week?
My question is, I want to know if the Knights are going to actually go for the trifecta. Very few people get that option. This is the trifecta. Right. I'm not that I'm competitive or trying to, up the ante, but I am. So which one of these mental health conditions is the main cause of disability worldwide? Dave, can I get some music or something? Like, can I?
Music is playing. Music is playing. You might not hear it, but it's definitely playing.
Okay. A, dementia, B, narcissism, or C, depression. I will ask again. Which one of these mental health conditions is the main cause of disability worldwide? Dementia, narcissism, or depression?
Depression, yeah. I'd say depression.
Well, Knights, we find you guys smart, informed, spiritual, loving, but we also find you patient because you will wait until next week to find out if you have indeed been able to pull off the trifecta.
And remember, you guys, to text the word GIVE, GIVE, to 818-698-1021 to support our Dollar Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign. We'll be right back with more conversation with the Knights. All right, so, man, I'm glad, Pastor Knight, Wesley, that you brought up the fact that we need to have another conversation with you guys, because this deep dive is incredible. One of the things that Marla and I are really interested in really starting on this next phase of our relationship and our ministry, so to speak, is actually to start taking and visiting the Black churches specifically to let them know that mental health, just like you were at a conference for the clergy, and that's when you experienced your first therapy, that needs to be opened up to the entire church community, not just the pastors, because it's so helpful, like you mentioned. And I'm so glad that this is part of you guys' ministry. And like we said earlier in the show, it's not just informative, it penetrates, and it forces us, because it's so compelling, it forces us to actually take note to what it is that is coming through you actually. And so, and we're so proud of you for also having that international reach and everything that you do. And this will definitely not be the last time we speak.
Thank you so much. We really do appreciate this. Yes. And thank you all for doing this.
Yes.
Yeah, for putting a spotlight on mental health. It's great to see a couple like you using your influence to do this. So thank you.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I'm going to let you know that I'm going to get to the bottom of my emerging emotional intelligence for sure. Okay? I want to look you in the eye for sure. I'm going to do it now. I don't know, Dave, be careful, because I'm already, super outspoken, but for sure I'm going to emotionally.
Oh no, I'm ready for the full bloom, baby. Bring it on.
But anyway, we really do. We appreciate you guys, and we can't leave again without your final words from you and Stephanie, that you're going to leave something that you can leave with our audience.
Yeah. Well, I just believe, I want everyone who's watching to just know that your story, this is not the end of the story. Whatever has happened, you are in a real sense empowered. If you embrace this emotional intelligence that every one of us has, you are empowered to, in a sense, rewrite your story. It's one of the reasons why we call it ministry revision, because you're rewriting.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was by the way, that was genuine, but that was my best Stephanie. That was my best Stephanie. I just realized that hit me so hard, Stephanie. It's a verb.
It's now a verb made into a verb.
Yeah, it's a verb.
It came through.
It's a verb.
It came through the virtual channel.
I did. That's crazy.
I want people to know that you really can be better. You can feel better. The joy that I wake up with every morning, I know that had I not done the work, and it didn't work, I won't tell you it didn't, but it is more than worth it. This joy that I have, the Bible talks about this wellspring, it is just ridiculous. At any time I can minister because I've been so ministered to. And therapy was such a significant part of that. The way and the level that Wesley and I mean, we both dealt with domestic violence in our home, and the fact that we have so much love one for another because we did the work together and individually. The love making. I just know. Sometimes I think it's unfair. I'm like, oh God, it's. I know it's not just for us. I know it can happen for and to anyone who is willing to do the work and go on this journey.
Now Dave is gonna hang up right now because I told him I was on disability. It's okay. You know what, Dave? I'm gonna do some more deep diving.
Yes.
But before we part, the two of you, we must tell people where and when to find you. I tune in as much as I can on a weekly basis, and if I'm not tuned in live, I always go back and revisit every sermon. So please tell everybody where to find you.
So you can find us, Revision Church Atlanta, on YouTube. We have our own YouTube channel, Revision Church Atlanta. Also on Facebook, we have our page, and our series and different sermons are on there. And you can follow us, IG and Facebook, C. Wesley Knight. C is for Charles, C. Wesley Knight. And Stephanie, your IG?
Steph J. Knight.
Steph J. Knight. We love for you to follow us on Facebook, IG. Also, I'm on Twitter as well. And you'll be able to see all of our material. We got some great stuff coming up.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, people can lose. Listen, guys, temperance, balance yourselves. You can lose yourself just binging on these sermons. I promise you. So, don't stop going to work. Don't let, come on now, balance.
Absolutely.
All right, guys.
So first of all, I want to thank you guys, literally. Oh, and remind you guys that Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave, coming up here pretty soon, next week, I believe, will actually be on Roku, as well as where you find us here on YouTube and all the other social media outlets. And anywhere you can find the podcast, it's there. So we want to remind you, it's going to be sitting right there on Roku, right there, just streaming into
now
your
you can
home.
watch it put it on your 85-inch TV, 120 inches, whatever you have. Play it
Absolutely. And remind you that next week our guest will be, again, Destiny Champion. We had a great conversation with her the last time she was on the show. Pastor Wesley Knight, and Stephanie Knight, you guys are more than an inspiration. And it was clearly an understatement when I said you guys are the new dynamic duo. So we thank you, and we will have to have you guys back again. Matter of fact, next time we might just pop down to Atlanta. It's that dynamic.
Come on, let's do it.
And just please let us use the towels in your house, because Dave has trained all the weather different now.
We'll make sure you get some real towels.
Yeah.
Give me some real towels, please. These quarantine paper towels aren't going to get it.
Yeah, it won't work. Thank you guys so much. We love to have you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
It's raw, real, and unfiltered. Wow.